Nate Vincent here with FCP Euro. We are going to be installing the rear sway bar and rear sway bar links in our MK7 GTI. Can't wait to get started. This is super easy and this is going to be a huge difference to the dynamics of this car. Alright, first things first, we are going to disconnect the sway bar from the two control arms. This is a 13mm nut and a 13mm bolt, so I got 13mm on both sides. We're going to loosen these up on both sides. So this essentially is going to disconnect the sway bar from the trailing arm. Persuade this bolt to come out. All right, move on to the other side. Do the same exact thing. So the next step is we're actually going to disconnect the sway bar from the subframe itself. To do that, we're going to use a triple square socket. So if you don't have one of these, make sure you do. And this size is an SP10. Attach that to my 1/4-inch drive, and we're going to all right, so now I have a little extension on here. You don't need one, but it makes life a lot easier. With an extension, loosen this up. Rear sway bar on this side is disconnected. All right, so now the next step is we're going to do this exact same thing we did to the driver's side of the car. We're going to do the passenger side. Again, SP10 triple square. We're going to loosen these guys up. And this will fully disconnect the rear sway bar. All right, what we're doing now is we have a 13mm and we're going to unbolt the two mounts on this rear muffler, but we're going to leave the front mount and the cross member so it doesn't drop down too far. What we're going to do is we're just going to let the muffler sag down a little bit just to give us a little more room to maneuver this sway bar out around this pipe. All right, so now we have only one mount on the rear muffler loose. We're going to try to get a sway bar, and we're going to see if we can finagle this thing around all the suspension arms. All right, so the first thing we do is take the driver's side, stick it up so we can get the passenger side down, and now we can move it around and get it completely out. So here we have both sway bars. We have the stock 20mm bar that has come out. You can see that these little plastic bushings or plastic end links are really all that control the anti-roll aspect of this roll bar to your control arm. So we're going to be replacing these with these really nice aluminum mounts with double spherical bearings. And we're going to be replacing this 20mm bar with this 25mm bar, 25.4mm bar from 034. A couple side notes, you can also see how much flex are in these bushings, and they don't really allow the bar to move very freely. So these bushings have grease fittings and they're going to allow the bar to move and they're going to hold it good and solid. You see there's very little rubber on this compared to the aluminum. Whereas here you have a steel strap with a lot of rubber under it. It means that you're going to get a lot of flexing and moving of that bar. So the overall feel of this bar is going to be significantly better, and the stiffness of the bar is going to be significantly increased. So it's kind of a win-win on both ends. So real quick, what we're going to do next is we're going to take this bar, we're looking at with the stock bar, I'm going to take the bushing aspects of the mount and I'm going to put them on the bar, and then I'm going to take the aluminum mounting brackets themselves and we're going to actually go mount the bar to the car. Then we will put the end links on the bar just to make it a little easier to wiggle it in there and get it mounted to the car. You got a grease zerk fitting here, got a little hole right here, you got a hole in the bushing right here, and to make it even better, look, there's actually a grid inside there for the grease to work around, so it's completely covering the pivot point of the bar. This is a really good design. Like this is proper smart designing, a way to make something last a long time. I know this stuff isn't the cheapest always, but this is why it's the best. All right, so now we've put the bushings on the bar. I'm going to put these. I'm going to bring them over to the car, so I have them handy. Little trick: one on this side, one on this side. Yeah. Got my bar ready. All right, so we'll feed the hardware, put the hardware right next to the mounts, so we have easy access. Like I said, this is a one-man operation, so put it in the same way it came out. we're in. So pivoting the mounts to make sure they're flat against the subframe. And then I'm going to take my mounting. And one thing you want to make sure is this grease zerk fitting, you want it facing downward. So if you want to grease this, you're not trying to finagle a grease fitting on top. So make sure this is pointed down, just like that. I'm just going to throw some fasteners in here for the time being. We'll move over to the driver's side. Same thing, make sure the bushing here is flat up against the subframe. And now we're going to take the mount. You couldn't do that with the stock sway bar. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to install our end links. So first thing I'm going to do is put both bushings in the bottom. So this is going to replicate this bottom portion of it. And then for the top portion, we have new hardware. You can see basically we're going to have a bolt straight through and we're going to have a nut on it, and that's going to pinch the bar. And that's going to allow this to move, allow the bottom to move. So to get started on that, let's get the bottom in place first. The bottom, we're going to be reusing the long sway bar bolts that go through the bottom of the trailing arms. But 034 has gifted us new nuts to go along with them. So this is one of the trickier aspects of the install, probably the trickiest aspect, is what we need to do is we need to pinch this down inside this trailing arm. So we need to get everything lined up. So it's kind of a finesse game, just getting it nicely lined up. And we'll take the bolt, pass it through, and we can put the nut right on. It's a little easier than I expected. So, and at this point you can see, you can test the spherical bearing, make sure you have the movement you need. You can see that if we move the bar down, and we move to the inside mounting point, we'd still have no issues with the mounting. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect this sway bar end link to our sway bar itself. So there's a special order this goes. So what we want is we need this bushing to actually go into the spherical bearing on the link. So let me show you that works. We have the spherical bearing right here, and I'm going to actually insert that into the end there, just like that. The next thing is we need the bolt to go from the sway bar through. Now that we have the bushing installed here, we're going to take the bolt and we're going to use the bolt straight through from the bushing side right through the sway bar itself. And then we're going to put the nut right on the end there. All right, so here we have a 15 millimeter and an 8 millimeter hex. So I'm going to take a 15 millimeter socket, I'm going to counter hold this, and I put my 8 millimeter hex cap screw socket in there. We'll be able to tighten this down. All right, so now that the end link is all tight on the top to the sway bar, we're going to take a 13 millimeter socket and a wrench, and we're going to tighten this lower portion down. Good and snug. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so the next step is going to be get this end link all hooked up. Using the new nut supplied. Just finger tighten that. Again, the bushing goes sway bar side. Push the bushing through. And then the bolt goes from the link to the sway bar. This is maybe a little tight because you have some pressure working against yourselves there. And then the 15mm nut goes on there. Now we're going to tighten everything down. So now using 8mm, tighten this down. Good and snug there. Now final step is just to remount the one side of the exhaust. Lift that up. Just trying to follow the old witness marks. Sometimes it requires a little bit of finesse. There we go. Done. All right, everyone, we just got through test driving our MK7 GTI with the new 034 sway bar and end links installed. Honestly, on a straight line, you don't really notice it. It's really not there. And then in the turns, you notice the roll stiffness. You notice the car wanting to rotate, especially in the mid to high speed corners. Really great upgrade for these cars. Really livens up the chassis. Totally suggest it. Really easy install. All around, big thumbs up. I hope that helped everyone. If you have any questions, please leave them below. Please like and subscribe. We'll be there for you.